وعلى سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. This is the second lesson in jurisprudential maxims. And in the first lesson we saw the difference between the jurisprudential maxim al-Qa'ida al-Fiqhiyya and al-Qa'ida al-Usuliyya, and the other one, which is the jurisprudential principle, they call it. We spoke about a couple of differences. We said the first difference between the jurisprudential maxim, which is al-Qa'ida al-Fiqhiyya, is that it is applied where? In the same category. Although it's a general ruling, it's a general, or they call it universal sometimes, but it is applied in one category. You cannot use it on a different category. While when you come to jurisprudential principle, al-Qa'ida al-Usuliyya, you can use it in any category. It's like a general tool. It is not specific to one category. You can use it in various categories. This is one difference. The second difference between them is that al-Qa'ida al-Fiqhiyya, you can apply it. Once you learn the law, the application of it depends on you. If you understand it correctly, you can apply it correctly too. You don't need the help of a jurist. While the second one, al-Qa'ida al-Usuliyya, the jurisprudential principle, you don't apply it. This is the job and the speciality of the faqih, the mujtahid, because he goes through this. And we gave an example of how do you verify the authenticity or the credibility of this hadith. How do you determine that khabarul wahid al-thiqa, the narration of one person who's trustworthy, is acceptable? Definitely you need to know this person, whether he is trustworthy or not. This is not the job of ordinary people. This is the job of the experts in this field. So these are two main differences between them. However, they mentioned other differences which I don't find them. I find them, they fall in the same, number one and number two. They are not no vast different from number one and number two. Today we come to the applications of these qawa'id. And we have many qawa'id, my friends, numerous ones, numerous laws or maxims. We have plenty of qawa'id, maxims. So we begin with probably the most popular one, which is qa'idatul tahara, the maxim of purity. Now, what does it say? It is the hadith that has been narrated by a person called Ammar as-Sabati. Ammar as-Sabati. This is his name. And in fact, they label this riwayah as, they label it as muwathaqa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. They label it as muwathaqa. Muwathaqa. Let me write it here. Muwathaqa. Muwathaqa. Probably some of you studied in the past 2 years, ilm al-hadith, the science of hadith. And the science of hadith divides the riwayat, the narrations, into categories. Depending on what? Why they are divided into categories?
Sanad.
Exactly. Sanad and the weight of it. How much does it weight? How much does it weight? Is it really credible? How much is it credible? How can you accept it? Depending on what? So this is studied in ilm al-hadith. The standards of acceptance are discussed in ilm al-hadith. So one of these categories is muwathaqa. What is muwathaqa? What does it mean? Muwathaqa. Muwathaqa comes from what? From thiqa. Thiqa. The roots of it. Now, what does it mean? How they put this name for it? Depending on what? Why they don't call it sahih? Sahihat. Sahihat zurara. We have sahiha, which is above muwathaqa.
Sahih, you have to be Shia.
Exactly. Muwathaqa means in the chain of narrators there is one or more who are not ithna ashari. One narrator or more who is not ithna ashari, then they call that one muwathaqa. Okay? So if there is none ithna ashari found in the chain of narrators, even if one of them, then that one is called, labeled muwathaqa, which is still acceptable, but does not reach the level of sahiha. So what does this muwathaqa say? The muwathaqa is narrated from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam, al-Imam al-Sadiq, Ammar al-Sabati, and al-Imam Abi Abdullah al-Sadiq alayhi salam. What does it say? It say kullu shay'in nadhif. Nadhif is synonymous to what? Tahir. Tahir. Nadhif here in this context is synonymous to tahir. So if kullu shay'in tahir, حتى تعلم أنه قذر. حتى until or unless. حتى تعلم أنه قذر. Okay? Qadr is the opposite of nadhif. So if nadhif is pure, qadr is impure. Okay? حتى تعلم. حتى until. تعلم, what does تعلم mean, my friends?
No. Knowing, you have to know
No.
for sure.
No. Certainty. Ilm here, ilm, ta'lam, is not just knowledge. Is certainty. This is certainty. Ilm is certainty. فإذا علمت, it continues to say, فإذا, once you know, فإذا علمت, once you know, I'm saying the translation, I would not write it, I will say it. Once you know, فإذا علمت, فقد, it becomes what? قذر. It becomes impure. Once you know the status of this, that it is not pure, then definitely it becomes what? Then you don't treat it as pure anymore. You treat it as فقد قذر. It becomes what? Impure. قذر, impure. Okay? Or فقد قذر. قذر. وإذا لم تعلم فليس عليك شيء. But if you don't know, وإذا لم تعلم وإذا لم تعلم, but once you don't know with certainty, فليس, nothing, فليس عليك, upon you, شيء, nothing is upon you. You are not responsible. You are free of any obligation. Once you don't know, if you don't know, then there is no obligation upon you. This موثقة, my friends, is very popular and is accepted, and therefore they established this maxim upon this موثقة, upon this riwayah. Okay, which comes موثقة, which is موثقة is reliable, of course, means reliable. Reliable. Okay. Now, there is some discussion among scholars that when we come across an item, this item here, look at me please, and I don't know, it was here, or a cup of water, let's say, or food, candy. Should I eat it? Is this, I found it in this room, in the kitchen, at the entrance. Should I treat this as tahir or najis? According to this, if I don't have certainty, certain knowledge, then definitely I treat this as tahir. There are exceptions. We're going to speak about exceptions. For every rule, there are exceptions. Every norm, there are exceptions. We will mention them. Why? We will mention them, okay? So, does that mean when I treat this as tahir, listen to me carefully, does that mean Sharia or the Shara, the lawgiver, is saying in reality this is tahir? Or no, not in reality. This is hukum zahiri, the apparent ruling, not the real ruling, not hukmul haqiqi, not the real ruling. I am saying you must treat this as a pure, not that it is in reality pure. Which one do you think?
First one.
Meaning? Zahiri, not waqi. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
Zahiri. So Sharia is telling me, religion is telling me, treat it as, because you don't have certainty, then your stand vis-a-vis this is to treat it as tahir. And nothing is upon you. If you don't know, you are not responsible. God is saying you are not, I'm not going to charge you. But there are some scholars who say no. They say number two. They say that when you don't know this is najis, then it means in reality, it is pure. Now what difference it makes?
يعني and God is pure.
Even in reality. يعني الحكم الحقيقي كمان. Not only الحكم الظاهري, الحكم الحقيقي.
How can they say that though?
Because the consequence of it.
Because of the consequence. So what difference it makes? What difference it makes if you say حكم الظاهري, I treat this as the apparent ruling, not the real ruling. Sharia gave me a leeway. Sharia does not want to burden me, wants to make my life easy, so it tells me, listen, if you are not certain, say it's tahir, to make my life easy. But in reality, it could be not tahir. Somebody could touch this on his palm, there was wine, there was urine, there was blood, there was all sort of, probably he touched it, he used this. Or the steering. Someone was telling me I buy cars from the auction and then I drive them. Sometimes there is a sweat on my palm. I drive them, take them from this location, or sometimes car rentals. So people sometimes here drink, you know, in America they drink, they drive, they go bathroom, they don't wash their hand. How do I treat the steering? Should I treat it as najis? If my palm is wet, Should I go and wash my palm or not? Now, speaking from the hygienic side, definitely you have to wash. I mean, even if the car is brand new, if you want to eat, if you want to stay away from germs, definitely. But what does religion say? Is this an obligation or not? What do you tell him?
No, it is
Exactly. But then when you study this with objectivity, in a scientific way, definitely I would say that the steering is not clean. With a car rental or a car that has been owned by so many people, definitely in a society where they don't wash their hand from alcohol, from whatever.
Well, it depends what we're talking about, right? If it's a piece of something you found like at the mosque,
No.
then versus...
No. Let's speak about this. This is a practical example.
No.
You rent a car from the airport,
Yeah.
and before you, so many people have rented this car. Your hand is wet, and you know if your hand is wet and you touch something, even if this is a board,
Yeah.
and you know there was a blood or urine or semen or alcohol, wine, let's say, not all types of alcohol. Some of them are pure, some of them are not pure, okay? And if there is something here on the board and you touch it with a wet hand, this najasa impurity is going to transfer to your hand. So you have to go and wash your hand. Okay? This is the ruling.
Yeah.
Now you rent a car, or don't forget about car, because he asked me, I brought it, the handle of the bathroom, not the mosque, let's say a restaurant. Your hand is wet and you touch it. Sharia says if you don't know, if you really don't know, you cannot with certainty say this is najis, treat this as tahir. But let's speak about reality, about our own inner conviction. A restaurant, thousands of people, they, in and out. They use the bathroom. Some of them, they don't wash their hands. Some of them, they drink wine, okay, with every meal. I can't swear by God and say, by God, 100% this is a clean, this is a pure. I can't, definitely. But Sharia says, listen, to make your life easy, we are telling you, treat this as tahir unless you know with certainty, not with suspicion, not dhann,
Right.
conjecture, with certainty, with yaqeen. Now the steering, what do you think about the steering?
Going back to the first example.
Same.
I mean, not to be corny, but you need to know the company, how well their cleaning is. You know.
Even if they clean, Dr. Ali, even if the company, they vacuum it, they clean it, they swipe the steering, let's say, but they don't pour water on it.
Even in the hospital, even they clean,
Yeah.
you have to wash your hands.
And even this one, they swipe it, they what they call it, they put wipes, but they
Right.
don't wash it.
No, the water.
This is not a religious way of purification, tathir. This is good for the health, no germs, but it does not become religiously tahir. Now, what is the difference between the group who are the majority, who say the Sharia, when it tells you this is tahir, this is hukum zahiri. This is hukum zahiri, not reality. There is apparent, see, apparent ruling, hukum al-zahiri. Ruling versus what? Versus reality, hukum al-haqiqi. This is hukm al-zahiri, this is zahiri, this is haqiqi, reality. So most of the scholars, they say this is apparent ruling, hukm al-zahiri. But there are, like Sahib al-Hada'iq, a well-known scholar, his name is Bahrani, Sahib al-Hadaiq says, no. When Sharia tells you you don't have certainty, then that is the reality. It means the reality it is tahir. So what is the difference? What difference it makes?
What was the last part? Say, I'm sorry. What did he say?
We have two groups of scholars,
Yeah.
majority and minority. Majority, they go with this hadith. The hadith says if you don't have certainty about an object, then you treat that as what?
Oh,
Tahir. But this ruling, is it apparent or reality?
apparent.
Apparent. Sharia trying to make your life easy. It's not telling you 100% this is tahir. No. It's saying at the time of doubt, when there is no certainty, you don't know whether this is tahir or najis, I am telling you this is tahir. But in reality it could be najis. But there are some scholars who say no. Sharia, when the Sharia it tells you don't have certainty about najasa, it is tahir. Yes, they say this is a real, meaning the object is 100% tahir. Not the ruling of it, but the object itself is tahir.
Because if you go with the apparent ruling, then you may need to, you could instill the ihtiyat, right? Then you're obligated to then,
No.
no?
Ihtiyat, this is not ihtiyat. Apparent ruling, it tells you, you follow this, you follow the steps, you don't have certainty, so it's
But
It's
it's
tahir.
apparent, because the thing could still be
Apparent.
najis, and like you said,
Exactly,
inside yourself,
exactly.
you're thinking this is pretty
But you
good.
treat it as tahir. So you wear the dress, you use the pen, you touch the handle, and you treat it as tahir. The difference between this and that is that if you find out someone else after you touch the steering with a wet hand, and you went and you did your salat in the mosque. You finished your salat, you came outside, someone said to you, listen, this steering was najis. I saw there was a blood or urine on it, or alcohol on it. In this case you don't repeat.
But in the other one,
But in this one you repeat.
wow.
Yeah, this is the difference. Yeah.
In the reality,
But-
you repeat, right?
No.
In the reality you don't repeat. You don't. Why in reality? Because the scholar is saying once Sharia tells you this is tahir, it means it is tahir. Even if it is najis, he will wipe out the najasa. But this one says, no, he doesn't wipe, he doesn't physically wash it. The ruling. But in reality, it is najis. Now you found out it is najis, you have to change. You have to repeat your prayers. If someone tells you after you did, let's say, salat with this dress. I come to this dress, I know nothing, it's hanging here at the back of the door, I wear it. They used to do this in the past. Many students, they share the dress. Now we have money, but in the past they didn't. And you wear it. Or women, they come to the masjid, they wear chadr for the prayers. She does her chadr, the chadr, nobody says anything. So she treats the chadr as what? As tahir. Once she finishes her prayers, someone comes to her and tells her, listen, this chadr is najis. It was thrown on the floor of the bathroom. In this case, she has to repeat because she knows.
Okay, so I understood all that, but that's for the apparent ruling,
Yes.
she repeats, for the reality.
Apparent. Reality says Sharia is going, once the Sharia tells you treat this as tahir, Sharia is going to wipe out the najasa from it. So in reality it becomes tahir.
But it's-
This opinion says no, Sharia is not going to come and wash this. Sharia is telling you in the case of doubt, I am telling you what to do. But sometimes Sharia, if it is najis, and if you find out it's najis, then you have to correct yourself. You have to fix it.
But how can it be najis in the reality version? If it's reality, then it was never najis,
No.
or no?
The author says, even if it is najis, when Sharia tells you it is kullu shay'in nadhif, because you did not have knowledge, not having the knowledge made it tahir. In reality made it tahir,
Right.
which does not make sense.
So they use the same.
Hadith, of course.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Because he says, look at the wording of the hadith. He says, when you know it is, فَإِذَا عَلِمْتَ, it becomes najis. So if you don't know,
It's pure.
it's pure.
It's 100% pure.
Bahrani, this guy who has this idea of reality, he says, look at the wording of the hadith. He's following literal meaning of the hadith, which is not right. He has to follow the spirit of the hadith.
Right.
The spirit of the hadith. The hadith is not trying to say, listen, if you don't know, it is in reality tahir, but once you know, it becomes najis. No, the hadith is saying, what should I do? How should I treat? Hadith is telling me, if you don't know, treat it as tahir, but once you know, then you have to treat it as najis. Okay? If you find out later that it was najis, then you have to fix the situation, because there is no excuse. You don't have an excuse. You realize that this was najis, so you have to fix it. We don't send someone to wash it for you because you didn't know.
What's the percentage of the breakup, say? between
No,
the two?
very minority, small. This is
10%, even smaller?
1%.
Oh, okay.
But this guy, why am I mentioning this? Although sometimes I say, why should I mention if this is minor? But just to know the opinions, how they think. Okay? Some of them, they take it literal. Some of them, they depend on the spirit of the hadith, not the wording of the hadith. Okay? Now, let's move from this into now, on what does this maxim depend?
On the subject, or
What are the basis for this maxim? What are the basis for this maxim?
You mean what's
Hmm?
the principle that?
Yes. Yeah.
حجية طبعا.
This is one of them. But then also we studied in Ilm al-Usul, we studied something also, because as I said maybe last time, fiqh and usul, they overlap. Okay? They need each other. Fiqh by itself cannot function, neither usul by itself can function. Fiqh and usul, you put them together, you get something. One of them does not get. You don't get anything. It's like a surgeon. We give always this. You need surgeon and you need tools in the hospital. The surgeon, if he goes to a bare room, they just call it theater because it has a roof and walls. He cannot do any surgery. You need the equipments, you need the tools, you need these machines, and you need the surgeon, both. The tools are ilmul usul. The equipments are ilmul usul. The surgeon is what? Ilmul fiqh. Fiqh, yeah. Okay? Now, what are the basis for this maxim? One basis is the presumption of continuity. Do you remember this from last year? Presumption. What do we call the presumption of continuity? Ahsant. Ahsant, mashallah. Of continuity. قاعدة الأصل or أصل الاستصحاب. أصل الاستصحاب. أصل الاستصحاب is a maxim or a principle? What is the difference between maximum and principle?
So principle
We
is
said this in
something-
the beginning. Just before you arrived, I explained that from last
Principle
week.
is something used universal, while the maxim is something subject.
Exactly, exactly. So the maxim, we use it with قاعدة الفقهية. While the principle, Dr. Ali, we use it with what? القاعدة help me.
What was that? I'm sorry.
Maxim, the
Yeah.
maxim,
Yeah.
maxim is قاعدة فقهية.
Okay, yeah.
While principle is قاعدة,
Usuliyya.
exactly, قاعدة أصولية. So is what type of a principle is this?
Usuliyya.
أصولي. We studied this in علم الأصول. Okay? We studied this in علم الأصول. What does that, can you simplify this for me? Presumption of continuity? Who can simplify this in a very simple definition?
It's similar to the purity, it's everything stays in continuum, either halal or
Give me an
haram.
example.
You left a shirt.
The
in a
shirt.
room,
Exactly.
clean, and you come back a year later, you assume it's clean.
This is
So you know-
in regarding to objects. Regarding to humans, give me an example. Human relations.
Marriage.
Marriage. I left the town, Fulan and Fulan were married together. I come after 5 years, I have no knowledge, so I have to assume that they are
Married.
divorced or married. Married. In America, I think you have to assume they are divorced because this is the norm. But universally, you know, or someone, I left him 10 years ago, now I come back. Should I, and he has a property, should I give it to him? He left the keys with me, the car with me, the house. Should I contact his heirs and give it to them because I presume he's dead? Or no, I should assume he's still alive. Okay? In the case of shak, in the case of doubt, I go back to the original what? State. I continue the original state until I get certainty that the original state is no longer exists with certainty. Okay, Dr. Ali, with certainty. So I should assume the previous status until proven otherwise with what?
Okay.
Okay, so this is number one. So this maxim is based on how many things? The first thing was what? What was the first thing?
Trustworthy.
No, the first proof that we used for this maxim, what was it? Riwayah, yeah, موثقة. So that was the first. This is the second. This is the second proof for this maxim, which is قاعدة أصولية. Now,
Say, istisbab,
Istishabab.
second?
Yes, the second. The first one was the muwathaqa, the riwayah that we mentioned. We get it from the riwayah. The second, we come to asl. Asl al-istishab also supports our argument that if you see something, then you treat this as its original nature. And the original nature should be pure, unless proven otherwise. Now, the third proof we use, this is number 2. Number 3 is that the shara or the lawgiver mentions what? Norms or exceptions? No, the exceptions.
Because he assumes you know the norm.
Exactly. Because the norms, everything is halal. Everything is tahir. This is the norm. Now, if he wants to tell you something, he tells you about the exceptions, not the norms. because the exceptions are fewer than the norms. Norms are 80%, exceptions are 20%. So he does not waste his time mentioning the norms to you. Why he should mention? He tells you what are the exceptions. Okay? So he would mentions the except. Now, where is the proof of this? That the lawgiver, the legislator, does not mention the norm. Always he mentions the exceptions. It's like when we go to the camp, we take the youth to the camp director, he comes, he gives us orientation. When he welcomes us, he says, listen, this campground, you can do everything except don't go near this, don't do this, don't do that. He mentions 3, 4, 5 points. The rest, enjoy your time. Okay? When it comes to the exceptions, Quran mentions them. Let's say Surah Al-An'am. When you go home, check this out. Surah Al-An'am, it's 5:3. حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم ولحم الخنزير وما أهل لغيره. He speaks about what is haram. The rest of the food is halal. Eat only these things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is Surah Al-An'am. Okay? Speaks about the food. This is regarding the food. Now regarding marriage, where is it regarding marriage? In chapter 4, Surah An-Nisa, verse 23. Again, when you go home, please check these. Check these 2 verses. Surah An-Nisa says you can marry anyone except those. حرمت عليكم أمهاتكم. And then it tells you who are the ones that are haram. Your mothers, your daughters, your aunts, paternal, maternal, the daughters of your wives. If you marry, Dr. Ali,
Yes.
if you marry a lady who was previously married and she has a daughter, so when you marry her, the mother, okay, she becomes your wife. Does the daughter become halal on you or haram?
Uriel will say halal.
What?
He's a director. I would say, I would say halal.
You mean halal, you can marry the daughter?
You can, I mean, I don't.
No, halal as a living.
Yeah, she does not wear hijab from you.
Right.
Okay? If you marry the mother, though the daughter is not your biological daughter, it's her daughter, it's your stepdaughter.
Oh, it's like you divorce. If you divorce your wife, can you then marry her daughter?
Uh-huh.
That's what I was thinking when you.
Yeah, so if you divorce the mother,
Yeah,
can you marry the daughter later on?
I'm not sure.
No, the Quran says no. Check it out. When you go home, check this. Okay? You cannot marry the daughter since you married her mother. But if you just do katb al-iktab, nikah, without consummating the marriage, without sleeping with this wife, then and you separate and you void the nikah and you divorce her, you may marry her daughter if the marriage is being consummated. But if the marriage is not consummated, you can marry the daughter. But if you sleep with the mother, then you can't marry her daughter if you divorce the mother. Okay? These are mentioned in the Quran, those that you cannot marry them. Who else that you cannot marry? Once your son does aqd, katb al-iktab, with a lady. Once he does aqd with her, she becomes your daughter-in-law. So even if your son divorces her later on, you cannot marry her. Or if the father married someone, وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا مَا نَكَحَ آبَاؤُكُمْ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ. If your father, let's say, had 500 wives, and he divorced some of them. Then the son cannot marry his father's divorcee. He cannot marry her. Those are in one category. They are all mentioned in verse 23. Other than that, you can marry. So the Quran mentions, the lawgiver mentions the exceptions, not the norm, because he does not waste his time. The norm are much bigger, the exception are smaller. So once he tells you, don't eat this food and this, it means the rest is what? Halal or haram? The rest is halal, because he's telling what is haram. He's explaining what is haram. Meaning that if I did not mention this item or that item, these things are halal. Unless what?
Unless he clarifies.
Unless the hadith comes. Because hadith sometimes is a supplement to the Quran, or a clarification to the Quran, or explanation to the Quran. So it is mentioned in the hadith sometimes. Okay?
What about the whole discussion around like where in the Quran it talks about traveling to and from Safa and Marwa? He's telling you there, is that considered still an exception? That he tells you it's okay for you to go back and forth? That's
إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج البيت أو اعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما. So what is your question?
So he's telling them it's okay for you, he's commanding them it's okay for you to go do
The
Safa.
okay in this context is a must. فلا جناح, it has been used twice. One in sa'i between Safa and Marwa, and one when you travel. Surah An-Nisa, when you travel, وَإِذَا ضَرَبْتُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ. ضَرَبْتُم means you take off in the land. You begin the journey. You travel. فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ أَن تَقْصُرُوا مِنَ الصَّلَاةِ. That you break your prayers. It has been used twice. Why did the Quran use the term فَلَيْسَ عَلَيْكُمْ جُنَاحٌ? There is no harm on you. Because people thought previously, in the case of Safa and Marwa, the polytheists, they placed the idols at the top of Safa and Marwa. So the early Muslims, they did not go. They hesitated to go there because these places are filled with idols. So they would not go. Quran came after removing the idols. He said, now if you go, there is no harm on you. But if you go, it means you must go. You must go. This is part of your Hajj. This is part of your Umrah. Okay?
So that doesn't fall under that third criteria then. It's not really an exception. It's
No.
He's just telling you it's asbab an-nuzul.
Exactly. Now, my friends, this one, what asl we can use here from last year? We studied aslul istishab and then
Bara'a.
exactly. Here we can use aslul bara'a. Why we use aslul bara'a? Because the lawgiver, he already told me the items that are haram. Are you with me, my friends? Please be with me. Because the lawgiver, although mentioned these things are haram, okay? These things in terms of food, these terms in terms of marriage. He mentioned them. So if I come across a woman who's not part of this ayah, then can you marry her or not?
Yes.
Yes, you can marry her, because if it was haram, God would have mentioned her. Since He left her out, it means it's halal. How do I know? Because there is aslul bara'a. Aslul bara'a states the principle of exemption. This is exemption. This is continuity. This is exemption. Okay? Exemption. Aslul bara'a. Principle of exemption. What does it state? Nadeem. What does aslul bara'a state?
Meaning that I mean, I would say
It means that the lawgiver is supposed to tell me I go to a place and the owner of that place tells me, listen, use the whole palace except this room. Now I come to a room that I don't know whether this is included or not. What should I say here? I say no, I can use it because he told me already. He was stating what is forbidden. Don't go to these areas. And he did not mention that room. Okay? Had he been wanting me not to go, he would have clarified that. So since he was silent, I take his silence as what?
Okay.
As okay, permission to go. This is Aslul Bara'a. Okay? And this is applies to this, Aslul Bara'a. So how many items, proofs we have for this maxim now so far? 3. The first one was the hadith, موثقة عمار الساباطي. The second one is the presumption of continuity. The third one is Aslul Bara'a. Before I conclude, I know some of you have sharp memories. When we studied Aslul Bara'a last year, we said it is contested by another asl, another principle. What was it?
Even if you are not certain 10%.
Exactly. What do we call that principle? Asalatul ihtiyat, precaution. Why they said, and there are scholars, they say, no, wait a minute. If you come across a situation, even if the Sharia is silent about it, which one should you should apply? This one or ihtiyat? The majority, they say this one. But there are a minority who says, no, ihtiyat. Why? Because what if, they say, what if 1 in a million, 1 in a million, there was a possibility that he does not want you to do this. And they give the example of what? They give a human example. But the human example does not apply to divine example. The supporters of this theory, they say, yes, your human example is very correct. It makes sense. But you can't compare it to the divine. God is different. You can't compare our relationship with God with our relationships among ourselves. These are two different categories. They are incomparable. They are incomparable to each other. They say, the people of ihtiyat, they give a human example. I'll be with you. Just, Assalamu. Please come inside. Come inside, please. Join us, please. They say, Assalamu alaikum. They say that if a king like Salman ibn Abdul Aziz, a just king, very just and intelligent, someone works for him in his office, okay? He come across a situation, he doesn't know whether the king wants him, let's say, to do this or not to do, to clean this room or not to clean. What does common sense say? Does it say, yes, go ahead and clean it? Because maybe, even though the king did not tell you, but maybe he forgot. Maybe he did not want to overburden you. Maybe there are hundreds of maybes. Go and do the job and clean it, just in case. There is a possibility, 1 in a million, that the king would come and find the room in a mess. You will be in trouble. So even though he didn't tell you, asalatul ihtiyat, the principle of precaution, says you have to take precaution. You have to do that. This is their argument. Dr. Ali, this is their argument. Therefore, they say, whenever we come across a situation we don't know the answer, we will choose asalatul ihtiyat. And those are 10%. 90%, they say, no, listen, the divine is intelligent. God is intelligent. God does not forget. God knows his job. لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم. He does not forget, he does not have dementia, he doesn't. If he wants me to do this, he will clarify it to me. He would not leave it ambiguous, vague. Therefore, I will follow this. Because they say, don't compare our relationship to God with our relationship with the king, with the boss, with the CEO of a company. Those are humans. God is God. We cannot compare. Okay? وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.